following is a presentation of HBO Sports.
Dome in San Antonio, Texas, to kick off a special day of boxing here on the HBO networks. Later this evening, HBO Latino brings you a doubleheader from this arena featuring two 23-year-old undefeated Mexican prospects, featherweight Oscar Valdez and 168-pounder Gilberto Ramirez. But first, we have a special matinee treat coming to you from Hamburg, Germany, where universally recognized heavyweight champion Volodymyr Klitschko gets set to defend his crown against Kubrat Pulyev, a little-known 33-year-old Bulgarian who has yet to taste defeat after 20 professional prize fights. And there's a live look at the O2 Arena in Hamburg, sold out as usual for the latest in the long line of Volodymyr Klitschko title defenses. Klitschko's longevity in the division now approaching record levels. And there's a look at Volodymyr, who arrived at the arena a short time ago to begin preparation for the showdown in the ring against Pulyev. Pulyev, arriving just shortly after Klitschko, comes from a boxing family in Bulgaria and is touted by some as perhaps the toughest opponent for Klitschko among all the recent title defenses. Hello again, everybody. I'm Jim Lampley, welcoming you to this special HBO Sports edition of Boxing After Dark, and it is very well after dark in Hamburg, where it's almost 11 o'clock at night as Volodymyr Klitschko and Kubrat Pulyev prepare to enter the ring for their heavyweight championship showdown. I want to remind you once again that later tonight, 9:45 Eastern Time on our sister channel, HBO Latino, you'll be seeing a pair of fights involving two fast-rising Mexican prospects, Oscar Valdez at featherweight, Gilberto Ramirez at 168 pounds. No Mexican-born fighter has ever won a title in that weight class, and Ramirez appears to have the potential credentials to do exactly that. But very shortly, we're going to be taking you to Hamburg, to the O2 Arena for the heavyweight title showdown between Volodymyr Klitschko and Kubrat Pulyev. And here to discuss it more with us, HBO boxing analyst Max Kellerman. Max, as I mentioned moments ago, quite a number of prognosticators suggesting that Kubrat Pulyev might be the toughest opponent for Volodymyr Klitschko in quite some time. How valid is that expectation?
Maybe a bit of wish casting there. Pulyev certainly is a very confident guy, and there are certain attributes he has that could prove difficult for Klitschko. Basically, what we're dealing with here is the most credible, undefeated challenger where the fight could be readily made, and so that's what you get tonight.
The last challenger to hold the mantle of most difficult Klitschko opponent in years was as recently as last October when he faced Alexander Povetkin in Moscow. This turned out to be another relatively easy Klitschko win. How did he do it?
Klitschko has this style now that's been so successful over the last decade, where he fights behind that jab and that piston-like right hand. So fighters come in with a game plan like Povetkin, I got to get inside on Klitschko. They find it difficult to get into the jab, and they don't want to sell out and give him the bum's rush because that right hand is waiting for them, and it is lightning fast, incredibly accurate, and carries concussive force. And there we see a lot of the mauling, holding, and leaning tactics of Klitschko, oftentimes criticized for his style, I think, unfairly. But in this fight, the criticism, I think, was fair. He used clinches Klitschko throughout as both an offensive and defensive maneuver, and it marred the fight. Povetkin
went down 3 times in the 7th round. In round 11, Klitschko was finally penalized for the holding tactics that so many decried at the end of the fight. CompuBox numbers for the fight, astonishingly, showed that Volodymyr Klitschko did not land a single body punch in 12 rounds of dominating Alexander Povetkin. Nevertheless, he made clear once again he is by far the most effective heavyweight in the world. Povetkin, by the way, recently got a knockout win over Carlos Takam, who had a draw on HBO against Mike Perez, and once again that seemed to underline that Povetkin was pretty doggone good.
Povetkin, a credible opponent, a super heavy gold medalist who went into the Klitschko fight undefeated and has since registered a big win, and that's as good as he could do.
A long time ago, in what might be called the dark ages of Vladimir Klitschko's career, even while he was rising to prominence and eventually winning a heavyweight belt, he got knocked out by 3 lesser opponents. One of them, Layman Brewster, in the first fight he ever worked with the great trainer Emanuel Stewart. From that point forward, it's been nothing but dominance. Let's take a look at how the current title reign began when he won the first of the 3 belts that he now holds against Chris Bird in Germany in 2006.
And again, here's the problem getting inside Klitschko. It's hard enough to get past the jab. Look what happens when you think you're going to. That right hand, that's as good as you can throw a right hand. It's ridiculous for a heavyweight to have something, a heat-guided missile like that. Shorter fighters have very little chance. And Bird goes down again. Chris Bird, a highly skilled heavyweight. He was obviously closer to the end than the beginning here, but still a highly skilled heavyweight who could do absolutely nothing with Vladimir.
And since that time, overwhelming dominance of the division. And let's take a look at some statistics that underline that dominance.
Well, here we see it's been a long title reign. 17 defenses. Look, Joe Louis was the heavyweight champ, and Vladimir Klitschko reigned with his brother as sort of a 2-headed heavyweight champ, so they could play traffic cop for each other a little still. He's on a list with Joe Louis, Larry Holmes, and by the way, right after Larry Holmes is Muhammad Ali, who over 2 reigns made 19 defenses, but they weren't consecutive, obviously. 10 in the first, 9 in the second. The Brewster fight really was a turning point for him, the first Layman Brewster fight, where he made up his mind that stamina would never be an issue for him again.
And since the last fight in the United States, the snooze fest against Sultan Ibragimov in Madison Square Garden, a fight made unwatchable by the fact that Ibragimov ran like a track star from Klitschko, it's been overwhelming dominance in the last 11 fights, statistical dominance so extraordinary that it fully establishes that Klitschko is as effective against his opponents as any heavyweight champion in history. Meanwhile, let's take a look at how he has dominated opponents during that stretch of time.
You know, you wouldn't think that Vladimir Klitschko and Floyd Mayweather have a lot in common, but since Klitschko, at Emanuel Stewart's pleading, used his physical advantage to minimize risk, but still maximize, it seems, output. You see that he is obviously a very successful offensive fighter. He has really emulated the Mayweather formula. He wins almost every round of every fight, and frequently, unlike Mayweather, actually stops opponents. Of course, the heavyweight division doesn't have as much talent as the lighter divisions.
So, the one who wants to upset that apple cart and try to bring an end to that kind of dominance is Kubrat Puljev. You've already mentioned that he's a 33-year-old former Bulgarian Olympian. Beyond that, who is Kubrat Puljev?
Well, 33 is, once upon a time, that was old for a heavyweight. Nowadays, that's a spring chicken. You could see the military background, military family. His father was a national heavyweight champion in Bulgaria. Puljev, very proud of his Bulgarian heritage. He's an Olympian. He has real amateur pedigree. Turned pro at an advanced age, but that's not uncommon for Eastern Bloc European countries who, until the fall of the Soviet Union, never turned pro, and since then have tended to stay amateur longer than their American counterparts.
Only 11 knockouts in 20 fights. That does not sound like overwhelming knockout power. And of course, the classic Vladimir Klitschko weakness is his chin. So if Puljev is to win the fight, what's the formula by which he does it?
Well, there seems to be a sense that Puljev has kind of this improvisational ability. Unlike Klitschko, who holds his left hand higher, Puljev holds it down by his hip and kind of snaps it out, makes it invisible, brings it up where you can't see it, and has the kind of confidence to pull things off. Then again, he also pulls straight back from punches because at 6'4.5", he's oftentimes the taller fighter. That ain't going to be the case against Vladimir Klitschko. Usually a fighter who pulls straight back from Vladimir Klitschko is knocked out in the early rounds.
The man given credit for having architected Klitschko's dominance, just as was the case back in the day for Lennox Lewis, is the great Emanuel Stewart, whose record in heavyweight championship fights is the greatest of any trainer in the history of the sport, and who taught both Lennox and Vladimir a style that would make them nearly unbeatable in the ring. But Emanuel Stewart died October 25 of 2012, and since that time the trainer has been Jonathan Banks. True continuity, in the sense that Banks was a student of Emanuel's, had been an Emanuel Stewart protege from age 15 onward, and he took over without missing a beat.
Look, Emanuel Stewart's legacy is the Kronk gym and Kronk boxing, but it's bigger than that. His real legacy is the profound influence he had on people who came in contact with him. Jonathan Banks, a protege, has taken very seriously the idea of Emanuel Stewart's legacy and the Kronk legacy, and you can see the work he's done with Klitschko, and was highly motivated by Emanuel's passing in the biggest fight of Jonathan Banks' career.
It was a busy time, November of 2012. Emanuel Stewart died on October 25. The memorial service in Detroit was delayed until after November 10, so that both Vladimir Klitschko and Jonathan Banks could take care of their business against Mariusz Bach. Bach was the first opponent for Klitschko, who was actually taller than Vladimir and had a longer reach. But nevertheless, Klitschko was able to dominate him, as had been the case with all previous opponents during this particular title run. That was on November 10. Then the memorial service in Detroit. Then Banks finally got to Atlantic City, where he was an enormous underdog against then rising heavyweight prospect Seth Mitchell.
Yeah, that was an emotional night for Jonathan Banks, and likely it will prove to be the high point of his professional boxing career.
Banks in the blue, gold, and red trunks knocked Mitchell out. The high point of his career, as Max Kellerman already stated, and of course exposing for us what we had not known for sure up to that point, which was the former professional football player Mitchell did not have the chin to become a top heavyweight contender. Let's take a look now at the tail of the tape for Kubrat Pulyev against Vladimir Klitschko. You see the 5-year age advantage for Pulyev, though certainly in terms of his physical vibrancy, Klitschko appears to be one of the youngest 38-year-old heavyweights we've ever seen. An inch-and-a-half height advantage, or you might say an only inch-and-a-half height advantage for Klitschko in the fight. Pulyev actually is credited with a reach advantage of a half an inch, using the traditional reach measurement, not our normal armpit to the end of the fist that we developed for HBO. And now here comes Kubrat Pulyev at the O2 Arena in Hamburg, walking to the ring. And it looks like a relatively lonely journey for Pulyev, who does not bring behind him the entourage that will eventually accompany Vladimir Klitschko into the ring. And the crowd here is enormously Klitschko-oriented, though you see some cheering there for Pulyev. When American fans wonder why it is that a Vladimir Klitschko does not fight in the United States, take a look at this. Take a look at the enormity of the crowd. Take a look at the fact that every seat is filled at nearly 11 o'clock. And also take note that usually more than half of German television homes are tuned in to watch the Klitschko title defense.
And the European boxing fan views it more as an athletic contest than a blood sport that it's viewed in North America, in the United States, Canada, and especially Mexico. And so Klitschko can maintain this kind of popularity and sell these kind of tickets in spite of performances that don't measure up to fight fans' expectations here in North America, certainly not in terms of the action they produce.
Klitschko's much publicized fight against David Haye was in Hamburg a few years ago, but that was outdoors in a soccer arena. This is only the second time that Vladimir has fought in this particular indoor arena in Hamburg, and the preceding one was the fight of which we showed you a couple of seconds before against Mariusz Bach.
And now, making his entrance to the ring, the man recognized by pundits and fans alike as the heavyweight champion of the world, Dr. Steel Hammer, Vladimir Klitschko!
So here he comes, And normally, this takes several minutes.
Ich ziehe Energie aus allem, was mich umgibt. Denn alles fokussiert sich auf diesen einen Tag, diese eine Stunde, diesen einen Moment, in dem ich alle gesammelte Energie wieder freilassen kann. Und dann...
He has a PhD in exercise physiology, speaks 4 languages fluently. That, of course, was a little love note to his German fans. It gets a little bit more theatrical every time. And if Prince Nassim Hamed wouldn't necessarily have been jealous of that, he certainly wouldn't have been embarrassed either.
Yeah, the Prince started the kind of WWE-style entrances.
And the Klitschkos have picked up on it.
They have.
And taken it to more expensive levels.
In recent years, though, sometimes that's the most exciting part of the night. And hopefully Pulyev brings out of Klitschko a little more of the offensive fighter we like to see.
Challenger and champion with their respective national anthems. First, the national anthem for Bulgaria. And now, the national anthem for Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, meine Damen und Herren, willkommen, welcome to the O2 Arena here in Hamburg, Germany. And this is the main event of the evening. 12 rounds of boxing for the heavyweight championship of the world. Presented by K2 Promotions and Klitschko Management Group, sanctioned by the BDB, President Thomas Putz, and the IBF President Daryl Peebles, the IBO President Ed Levine, the WBO President Francisco Paco Barcarcel, and the WBA President Gilberto Mendoza Sr. The three judges at ringside scoring this bout will be Glenn Feldman, Jerome Jakubko, and Joe Pasquale, and the referee in charge of the action at the bell, World Championship veteran Tony Weeks. And now, the officials are ready, and the fighters are in the ring, and they are ready. So for the thousands in attendance, and the millions watching around the world, from Hamburg, Germany, let's get ready to rumble! Fighting out of the blue corner, wearing black, official weight 112 kilograms. A perfect professional record consisting of 20 fights, 20 victories, including 11 wins by knockout. He is the heavyweight fighting pride of Sofia, Bulgaria, the IBF #1 ranked heavyweight challenger in the world, the undefeated Kubrat, the Cobra Pulyev. And fighting out of the red corner, wearing red, officially weighing in at 111.5 kilograms. This Olympic gold medal winner has a professional record consisting of 62 victories, including 53 knockouts, and undefeated for a decade, originally from Ukraine, but he lives and fights out of Hamburg, Germany, with the WBA, WBO, IBO, and IBF titles. He is universally recognized as the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, Dr. Steel Hammer, Volodymyr Klitschko.
Vladimir Klitschko, Jim.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, you both received your instructions in the dressing room. Okay. He goes right here is okay. Anything below that's low. Right here is okay. Anything below that's low. I want a good, clean fight. Obey my commands at all times. Above all, protect yourselves at all times. Let's go.
So Klitschko has faced many opponents in recent years who come into the ring with a certain degree of confidence, and within a couple rounds, that confidence dissipates as Klitschko unfurls his jab and that right hand behind it.
Klitschko awaiting the birth of his first child. Longtime paramour Hayden Panettiere expecting within a couple of weeks from now to deliver a daughter. He's been somewhat apprehensive in the build-up to the fight, worrying that the baby might be born before the fight takes place. Apparently that isn't the case so far. She's still on course for a couple of weeks from now, and now Vladimir's in there against Kubrat Pulyev. And already Tony Weeks talks to the two of them and breaks them up, and of course some people were disappointed with the way the referee handled the Babetkin fight in Moscow. Tony Weeks has been flown into Hamburg for this one, and you can see that he's working already. Max, I wouldn't say that Tony Weeks is necessarily a restrictive activist referee, nor is he a let him go and let him fight kind of a guy. He's somewhere in the middle.
And Pulyev here, he may have his hands full because Klitschko is using the clinch very early. Pulyev here, opening bell, comes right at Klitschko, and he's fighting him the way once upon a time it was felt you had to fight Klitschko. You had to rough him up. You had to create some doubt in his mind about his ability to fight through a rough fight. You had to show Vladimir that he could be hit and hurt. It hasn't gone that way for Klitschko opponents in recent years. Klitschko has weathered the kind of storms they've been able to muster. But Pulyev believes, obviously, early in this fight, that's what he has to do.
And a left hook lands for Klitschko, and down goes Pulyev. 1 minute and 11 seconds into the fight.
And that's why it doesn't work.
And now Pulyev mugging with Klitschko as if to say, look, I'm not hurt. But that was a solid left hook, which delivered exactly the same result as a lot of other Klitschko left hooks, and now there are 2 knockdowns.
That's why you can't just give Klitschko the bum's rush. He's not the same guy who was knocked out repeatedly years ago.
2 knockdowns in the first round of Pulyev, both of them by left hooks. Klitschko has found a hole in Kubrat Pulyev's defense.
And I don't know why Pulyev is standing in front of him here without any legs, badly hurt. Even if the idea is to rough Klitschko up, boy, you better clear your head.
There was a quote in a German newspaper, a reporter saying to Klitschko, do you think that Pulyev is the toughest opponent in years? And Klitschko's response was, what if I knock him out in the first round? What will you think then? Got 48 seconds in which to still try to pull that off.
The problem with Klitschko now is you stay away and lean back as you see Pulyev's weight's on his back foot.
Hard right hand by Vladimir.
Yeah, you're in line for that right hand that can knock you out. You come in and try to get inside the reach. That left hook was waiting for him and almost knocked him out.
Vladimir holding his left down below his waist as though inviting Pulyev to come to him. Lands a right hand again, and Pulyev momentarily has to hold on. It's been a show of force in the first round. Then 7 round for Vladimir Klitschko after 2 left hook knockdowns of Kubrat Pulyev.
Here's the first knockdown. Pulyev with disdain for Klitschko's power. Klitschko comes in with the left hook. Actually, that was Klitschko coming to Pulyev a little more than I originally thought. And then the second knockdown, Pulyev never had his legs from the first knockdown. Here's a right hand. Luckily for Pulyev, his weight was far back enough that most of the power was spent by the time it landed.
Those were 3 of the 8 punches CompuBox found Klitschko landing in the first round out of only 20 thrown. Klitschko 8 of 20, Pulyev 6 out of 18. 4 of Kubrat Pulyev's 8 landed punches, or 6 landed punches, were power shots. 4 of Klitschko's 8 landed punches were power shots, 2 knockdowns. We go to round 2. Pulyev lands a jab.
Pulyev jabbing to the body, probing Klitschko's defenses. Fighting at a much more measured distance than he did in the first round after those knockdowns. Pulyev is.
Klitschko sticking his jab, sometimes thunderous, sometimes tactical. And he gathers Pulyev in as Kubrat comes to him.
Pulyev with a couple of rabbit punches behind Klitschko's head.
Another right hand lands for Klitschko, and the crowd roars, but that one was just a little bit offline. Pulyev doesn't have enough head movement to be an elusive target for Klitschko's power shots.
No, as you said, he leans back with his hands down, which when you're 6'4.5", oftentimes you're tall enough to get away with that. But against a taller fighter, you remain in the line of punches. Here Puljev now getting close enough to Klitschko in that clinch where he has an arm free and he feels he's out of danger to land something, anything to disrupt Klitschko, including those behind-the-head rabbit punches.
You wonder at what point Tony Weeks might begin talking to Puljev about rabbit punching. So far, he's letting them get away with it. Prior to tonight, Puljev had been down once in his career, last fall against Joey Abel. Now 2 more knockdowns to go with that by Klitschko in round 1.
That second knockdown was really a continuation of the first. It shows you just how hard Klitschko hit Puljev and how hurt Puljev was, that he went down essentially from a shove or a tap.
And Klitschko landed another hard left hook under the chin of Puljev. Everybody talks about the jab and the right hand. In fact, his most efficiently effective punch, when he uses it, may be that left hook. And he can hook off the jab like few heavyweights have done.
Yeah, Klitschko is just an excellent offensive fighter. Defensively, as you're seeing here he is being held, but defensively, he relies on his height, reach, and clinching frequently in recent fights.
Over there. 2 rounds in the books.
Standing there. I know you don't want to move back, but moving in circle, pivoting and start boxing, that's not moving backwards. He's trying to make an ugly fight. He's trying to get you on fouls. He's trying to cut you some type of way. He's trying to fight really dirty. You better than that. You don't have to fight dirty. Start boxing this dude, up and down with your jab. He don't know when the punch is coming if you start dressing him up and down with your jab. Start boxing. Use that beautiful rhythm you got. This is your canvas. Use the rhythm you got. He can't keep up with your rhythm. Start moving. Just up and down with the jab. Keep the right hand here so you can shoot it straight down the middle. You will never see it coming. See it.
Round 3 begins. Jonathan Banks telling Vladimir Klitschko, don't fall prey to the foul fest. You don't need to do that. Move in a circle, use your feet, set him up for clean shots.
Yeah, I think the geometry of the fight is important for Klitschko, rather than just in and out, which sometimes his opponent can dictate. When he fights on an angle, when he turns his opponent and fights in the circle behind that jab, very little Puljev should be able to do.
Particularly given that Puljev holds his hands in such a way as to allow an opening for Klitschko's jab. Puljev holding his left hand out and waving it in a circle allows Klitschko to simply ram the jab straight up the middle of Puljev's defense.
Yeah, that style of kind of snaking it around like that is a kind of smoke and mirrors style. I don't know how effective he expects it to be against Klitschko, who mechanically then has the advantage straight up the middle, as Puljev's left hand is not there really for defense for straight punches.
Body shot landed for Puljev. Klitschko doesn't throw many body shots. In 12 rounds against Alexander Povetkin, a stunning statistic, CompuBox found Klitschko landing no body shots. But when you're 6 feet 6 inches tall, it may not be in your best interest to invite counter punches that way.
Necessity is the mother of invention, and why should Klitschko have to invent a
hard
body
right
attack?
hand by Klitschko, momentarily wobbled Puljev again.
When he can do that. That's just standing in the middle of the ring, both guys boxing, and one guy able to land that kind of shot
A
at
left
will.
hook and a push, and Puljev is down for the 3rd time. And that left hook is proving unstoppable for Vladimir Klitschko.
Hey, come here. Good. Okay, here we go.
Tony Week's going to let him keep going. Puljev keeps insisting, I'm not hurt. Klitschko's knocking him down more or less at will.
Yeah, and like in the first round where the second knockdown was a continuation of the first, that first right hand in this round, Puljev never got his legs back. He's just starting to bounce a little now.
A bloody mark under the left eye now of Kubrat Puljev, perhaps the product of the Klitschko right hand.
Puljev has been reduced to rabbit punching Klitschko. It's the only thing he's done in this fight.
I was just about to say, his best punches are landed in clinches on the back of Klitschko's head. Round 3 concludes.
Watch out.
Yeah, yes, I know. Good. Super.
Du musst durch die Mitte.
There's the Klitschko right hand. You know what I mean? To stand in the middle of the ring and be able to land a right hand that cleanly that produces a knockdown. The other guy's hands are up. He's anticipating an attack, and it doesn't matter. And by the way, Jim, that follow-up left hook, you were right. That was a real hard shot, not like the first round where Puljev just went down because his legs were still wobbly.
Harold, how do you have it through 3?
Okay, Jim, I got it 30-24, 3 rounds to nothing, Vladimir Klitschko. You know, just like you said, you got to give him an extra 2 points for the 2 knockdowns in round 1. You got to give him an extra point for the knockdown in round 3. I mean, that's a huge 6-point lead, Vladimir Scott. Jim, Kubrat Puljev, surprisingly, to me at least, is recuperating very well from these knockdowns. I mean, every time he's got up, he seems able to fight, you know, and he is fighting. So at least we're getting something out of the opponent. 3-0, Vladimir Klitschko.
And as you were speaking, Harold, Puljev landed a right and a left, 2 of the harder shots that Klitschko has taken in his last several fights.
I agree with Harold. In both the first and third round, Puljev went down, especially in the first, with the look of a guy who was not going to be able to continue, but here we are on the 4th, and he had a little moment of success earlier in this round. Once upon a time, Jim, if a guy could show Klitschko that he could take his power and still be in front of him by the 5th round and still be willing to take risks, we saw in several fights Klitschko didn't fare well. Klitschko collapsed, but that was a long time ago and almost a different lifetime as a fighter for Vladimir Klitschko.
Yeah, he hasn't really had an uncertain moment since getting knocked down against DeBarrel Williamson in the fight after the Lehman Brewster fight, the last time he lost in 2004, more than 10 years ago. Other than, of course, the 3 knockdowns against Sam Peter in 2005.
And Emmanuel Stewart was able to talk him through those shaky moments.
And by the way, Puljev must have seen the Peter fight because one of Samuel Peter's knockdowns was clearly the result of a punch to the back of Klitschko's head.
I mentioned to begin the fight that sometimes Klitschko opponents come in confident, and after a couple rounds that's beaten out of them. Doesn't look like Puljev has had the confidence beaten out of him in spite of 4 knockdowns in the first 3 rounds.
Three knockdowns. 2 in the first, 1 in the third.
Excuse me.
Feels like 4.
That right hand that landed, I registered that as a knockdown, Jim.
That right hand left a mark, which is still there, under the left eye of Kubrat Puljev. 30 seconds to go in round 4. Another left hook lands for Klitschko.
Stop. Let him go. Right back to the corner, Vladimir. Let's go.
And another left hook to punctuate round 4 as Klitschko continues to dominate in Hamburg, Germany. Meanwhile, November 22 from Macau, China, HBO pay-per-view brings you the welterweight showdown between Manny Pacquiao and Chris Algieri. November 29 Boxing After Dark returns from Omaha, Nebraska, with hometown hero Terrence Crawford defending his lightweight title against Ray Beltran. Sneaky candidate for potential Fight of the Year consideration because Beltran is a rugged, all-out warrior who will give Crawford a tussle in Omaha.
Love that matchup.
He's sitting there with his hands wide open. Only thing you got to do is keep your defense going like you're doing and just use that left hand and keep your ready. And you're good to go.
Передней рукой, когда поджимаешь. Не зажимайся,
CompuBox count showing Klitschko throwing only 19 punches per round, but landing at a 42% connect rate and seemingly landing at will, particularly with the left hook, which has been a damaging punch along with one giant right cross in the third round. Pulyev, 20 of 88 so far, a 23% connect percentage. Another hard right hand for Klitschko, and Pulyev continues to fight back. Got a pretty decent chin for a guy who's been down 3 times.
Yeah, Pulyev decided to fight back with the head again. I mean, that right hand that he threw landed on the back of Klitschko's head. Of course, that's part of Klitschko's defensive strategy. He only gives you the back of his head in those clinches. And so if you move your hands, your free hand, which you're supposed to do, the only way to hit him upstairs is to the back of the head.
An illegal punch, not a legal punch. Not showing up in the CompuBox numbers, for instance. German crowd chanting as 2 Eastern European-born fighters square off in the ring. Over the course of the past decade, Germans have become quite accustomed to supporting as fans guys who were born in Eastern Europe and migrated to Germany for economic opportunity. Arthur Abraham, I should say, from Romania. Both Klitschko's from Ukraine. Kubrat Pulyev from Bulgaria. Most of his fights in Germany.
Klitschko opponents have to know by now that they're going to have to walk through the fire to get the win.
Hard right hand by Pulyev. And the Klitschko chin holds up for the moment to that punch.
Yes, Pulyev.
Down goes Pulyev on another left hook. And that may be the one from which he does not get up. He's done. And it's a 5th round KO win for Vladimir Klitschko.
What you just saw was a fighter, as we were talking about Puljev's fighting spirit, that he hadn't gotten the fight beaten out of him. He never did have the fight beaten out of him. Vladimir Klitschko simply separated him from his senses. This, Jim, is why boxing is more compelling than any other sport. It's not a metaphor, it's literal. He just separated, Klitschko did, Pulyev from his own will, as in Puljev's brain told his legs, get up. His legs couldn't do it.
And the right eye of Pulyev, a perfect illustration of the damage that Klitschko did with that left hook. You see Vitaly Klitschko's wife on the cell phone, most likely to Hayden Panettiere, Klitschko's girlfriend, who is awaiting the birth of their 1st child. And the celebration continues in Vladimir's corner. That was an interesting moment. He was sternly challenged by the hard right hand from Pulyev, and within seconds he came back and destroyed Pulyev with a left hook.
Yeah, in Puljev's case, you can't say the spirit was willing, but the flesh was weak. It's the spirit was willing, but the flesh was concussed.
And there's Vitaly's wife, as she continues seemingly to recover from the tension of watching the fight.
You just saw the literal imposition of one man's will over another.
And there's the left hook. And you see the look on Puljev's face as he goes down. Into the count at about 6 or 7. He made a peremptory effort to rise, and it was no go. A satisfying victory for Vladimir, who destroys once again an opponent touted coming in as a stern test the kind of guy who might upset the apple cart. No such luck in Hamburg today. Shannon Briggs at ringside. Shannon Briggs now makes a habit of going everywhere in the world Vladimir Klitschko goes to try to challenge him to a fight. It's interesting he even got a moment of camera time since his claim is as invalid can be.
Well, he wants to get paid. I mean, Shannon, this is a big payday if you fight the heavyweight champion of the world. And once upon a time, Briggs was the kind of guy that you really had to be careful with no matter who you were, because he was fast, he could punch, he is experienced, but you saw what Klitschko just did to a guy who, as you mentioned, Jim, some people felt had a legitimate shot of winning. It was a no contest.
Pulyev landed 2 or 3 really hard shots during the course of the fight, hoping to crack that legendarily thin Klitschko chin. Couldn't be done.
You know what, in the heavyweight division, you know who doesn't have a good chin? Anyone who gets hit on the chin. The whole point is to not get hit on the chin by a 250-pound guy. And Klitschko, given the style that Emanuel Stewart tutored him in, now simply doesn't get hit on the chin.
Same style in which Stewart tutored Lennox Lewis. A perfect technique scenario for the taller man to guard his chin simply by never allowing that chin to go past a vertical line, an imaginary line, from the front knee to the ceiling. Lennox Lewis allowed his chin to drift past that line against Oliver McCall. He hit the canvas. Emanuel Stewart taught him how never to do it. And with Klitschko, same thing. That chin never goes beyond an imaginary line from the front knee to the ceiling, and that's why Kubrat Pulyev and 1,000 others haven't been able to get it.
We're staring at the ceiling.
That's right. They wind up looking up. And with the Ukrainian flag draped over his shoulders, Vladimir Klitschko celebrates for the mostly German audience. Dr. Steelhammer continues to reign supreme. That's his 17th consecutive successful title defense in the heavyweight division. Joe Louis had 25, Larry Holmes had 20.
And Muhammad Ali had 19 over 3 different reigns, but really defended the title in those 2 reigns after the wins against Sonny Liston and George Foreman.
And it's Vitaly Klitschko's wife, Vladimir's sister-in-law, who's getting all of the German television on camera time that otherwise would be going to Hayden Panettiere if Hayden had chosen to come to the fight. But 8.5 months pregnant, she stayed away.
Pulyev gave it his best effort, you know, but as has been the case over the last decade, no one's best is nearly good enough for Vladimir. The only real dispute as to who's been the best heavyweight over those years is his big brother, Vitaly, but Vitaly ain't fighting anymore.
Now the mayor of Kiev. And a political figure of increasing importance in their home country, Ukraine. And there's Pulyev with ice on the right eye and swelling under the left eye as well. So let's take another look back at some of the action in the ring. And that's another angle of the left hook, which brought the end of the fight. Again, so much is made of the tremendous jab and the dominant right hand, but this left hook has fashioned many knockouts over the years. Ray Austin comes to mind. There have been a couple of others. And tonight, the left hook was an unstoppable punch, Max, as it accounted for 3 of the 4 knockdowns of Pulyev.
Yeah,
Ladies and the reason... The end comes at 2 minutes, 11 seconds of round number 5. The winner by knockout victory, and still heavyweight champion of the world, Dr. Steelhammer, Vladimir Klitschko.
Final CompuBox numbers for Volodymyr Klitschko against Kubrat Pulyev. And you see that Klitschko landed 38 out of 89 total punches in the fight. Fighting at an extremely measured pace, being wrestled around the ring a lot of the time as the two of them repeatedly fell into clinches. Klitschko lands 43% of his overall punches, including 21 of 53 jabs, meaning that he landed at an extraordinarily high rate when he threw his power punches. Kubrat Pulyev, 10 out of 64 jabs, had the nerve to try to jab with the great jabber. And power shots, Klitschko landing nearly half. Pulyev 15 out of 46. Pulyev landed a couple of good, clean shots in that last round that challenged Klitschko early. Volodymyr came back to knock him out. So a tremendously dominant performance. He's 38 years old. Is he getting better?
Maybe. I think the reason I was going to say that Klitschko was able to land that first left hook is because Pulyev was offensive-minded and was getting ready to come in when he got caught with that left hook, when Klitschko jumped in with his own, and that just goes to show how difficult Klitschko is to handle. You think, I'm going to walk through him and break him. He'll separate you from your senses. You want to box him from long range? Good luck with that. He's 6'6", with a jab, a right hand, and as Jim said, a left hook for good measure. You know, I think the American press really missed out on the Klitschko brothers' story. They grew up together talking about one day we're going to be the two-headed heavyweight champion of the world, and they made it happen. And for so many years, people were upset about this somehow. There's not clarity in the heavyweight division. That's a great story. A two-headed brother team of heavyweight champions. But okay, that's over now, and Volodymyr Klitschko stands alone as the one and only heavyweight champion of the world. And what an interesting heavyweight champion he is. Never before in the history of boxing has a heavyweight shown such vulnerability as Volodymyr did so deep into his career when he was getting knocked out by Layman Brewster and Corey Sanders, and then flipped the switch and went on a decade-long run of dominance like this. It's simply never happened before.
All right, thank you very much, Max Kellerman. Now, let's jump ahead 1 week and look at a preview of next Saturday's pay-per-view showdown in Macau between Manny Pacquiao and Chris Algieri.
I'm relatively unknown on the world stage compared to like a Manny Pacquiao. I'm where he was 10 years ago, and he's been where I want to be.
Like Chris Algieri today, over a decade ago, Manny Pacquiao was the relative unknown and the underdog when he stepped into the ring with Mexican legend Marco Antonio Barrera.
Hard left hand, straight on the button by Pacquiao, down goes Barrera. A superstar emerges, Manny Pacquiao.
That knockout win launched Pacquiao on one of boxing's most storied careers, one which has seen him win titles in 8 divisions.
That is the most spectacular one-punch shot of Manny Pacquiao's incredible career.
Battle the best of his generation and become a cultural phenomenon.
We thought Manny Pacquiao was great. He's better than we thought.
And last April, in a rematch of his controversial loss to Tim Bradley over 2 years ago, Pacquiao earned a revenge-fueled win and regained a welterweight belt. On November 22, Pacquiao defends that title against Long Island native Chris Algieri. Last June, Algieri walked into the ring as the opponent for then rising star and 140-pound title holder Ruslan Provodnikov.
The prevailing wind was that I was the sacrificial lamb who was going to go out there and make Provo look good and get destroyed.
Down goes Algieri on a Ruslan Provodnikov left hook, and Algieri's right eye appears to be damaged by the shot. Algieri goes down on a right hand, and this could be quick.
So I took that knee, which was great because the vision cleared as I was on my knee. And I got up and I went right back to the game plan.
And he knocks Provodnikov's head back with a jab there. Good hard right hand by Algieri left the mark on Provodnikov's cheek.
Algieri's shocking split decision victory was one of boxing's biggest upsets of the year, propelling him into his showdown with Pacquiao.
I'm taking him seriously. I'm not taking light. I'm not underestimating him.
Will Chris Algieri pull the upset once again, or will it be another victory in Manny Pacquiao's Hall of Fame career? Pacquiao versus Algieri, live on HBO pay-per-view
Tonight at 9:45 p.m., make sure you tune in to HBO Latino to see two of boxing's hottest prospects in featherweight Oscar Valdez and 168-pounder Gilberto Ramirez. Following live boxing on main channel HBO, host Max Kellerman breaks down next Saturday night's welterweight showdown with the help of Tim Bradley and Virgil Hunter on the premiere of Under the Lights, Pacquiao-Algieri. And if you missed any part of Klitschko Pulyev, you can catch it again in its entirety at midnight, Eastern and Pacific time. And don't forget, there's plenty of sports programming coming your way on HBO, beginning this Tuesday night with Peter Berg's State of Play documentary, Happiness, a revealing look at former football stars who search for happiness in retirement. Immediately following is my show, The Fight Game, as we examine boxing's biggest stories and issues. November 25, it's a return of Real Sports, taking a look at iconoclast Mark Cuban. In addition, lots of HBO boxing still coming in the weeks ahead as 2014 finishes with a flourish. Check out these fights and dates, as we'll be there every step of the way to bring you these highly anticipated bouts. Names like Manny Pacquiao, Terrence Crawford, and Tim Bradley taking center stage as we wrap up this year's boxing calendar in style. Visit Inside HBO Boxing for up-to-the-minute information on upcoming fights and more boxing programs. And now for our entire crew, thank you for being with us for this edition of Boxing After Dark.